Welcome back to another episode of Flawless Play-In Garage, where today we are once again working on this, my 1994 Buick Roadmaster station wagon, into which I am attempting to put a Duramax diesel V8 and Allison transmission, and I barely remember why I'm even trying to do this anymore, but there was a reason, I think. It really doesn't fit. If you want to catch up on all of the really stupid things that have gotten me to this point so far, you can check up here for a link to the playlist for all the videos so far in this series. But today, what we're going to be focused on is finishing up the chassis work. This vehicle has had extensive chassis modifications so far, including a Corvette front end, custom frame rails, reinforcements, all kinds of crazy stuff. We're going to wrap up the chassis work today, I hope, because local powder coating, blasting and coating shop, Kaiser Blasting and Coating, is doing a special. They're giving $100 off if you can get it in before Thanksgiving, and they'll powder coat the whole chassis. I previously was not going to bother with powder coating. I'm just going to paint the chassis, but living in this climate here in the Midwest, I would like to be able to actually drive this thing even when the weather is not perfect. And it'd be really nice peace of mind to not have to worry about rust hiding in some corner of the chassis. The B-body chassis were not immune from rust. And I like the idea of getting it powder coated. But that means I've got to get this chassis into the shop before Thanksgiving or I'm going to lose the shop. Or it'll cost me like a little bit more, but it's a useful deadline, so I'm going to use it. Now, in order to actually finish up the chassis, we've got to do a couple things. We've got to make a transmission mount and get that finished up. We've got to finish up a little bit of fabrication that was left over on the engine mounts, and then we've got a little bit of work to do on the trailer hitch as well. But first, I've got to talk to you about today's sponsor. Today's episode is sponsored... You know, I can't think of anything to say, because we all know there's just no jokes that can be made about trans mounts. So to start, we need to get things level. I've spent about an hour kind of re-leveling the chassis on my very unlevel floor, and then kind of leveling the engine and trans into the spot that I want, and setting my pinion angle. So I've got the drivetrain here roughly at a 1.2 degree down angle, and I've got my center carrier back there set at approximately a 1.2 degree up angle as well, kind of that equal and opposite angle for the drive shaft and for the pinion setup. Just wanted to make sure that I kind of have about the right positioning here to get the trans put in. I've also been checking the all critical clearance over here for the steering, and with everything being where I want it to be, I think we're pretty good for clearance there. I did have to block up this engine mount by about 3/8 of an inch to get the engine to the level that I was comfortable with. So that mount, which is only tacked together again now, that mount may need further modification or lengthening. Might have to get out the old steel stretcher to kind of expand that mount a little bit later. But for now, this should be close enough that I can start tacking together some kind of trans mount contraption back here. And I think we're going to call that the transmission mount. This is the B-body original mount, cut and sectioned with 2x4 box steel used to make the actual plate to capture the backside of the Allison, and then reinforced with more plate to just make it as strong as I reasonably could. I think I still have room for the exhaust on one side. We'll see how it all comes together. Now, on the trailer hitch, somebody on one of the forums or here on YouTube, I don't remember, but thank you for pointing out that I used the same steel tube for the drawbar, the receiver bar on the hitch that I used for the crossbar. And you really want to have like a thickened edge at the end of the receiver tube to prevent it from getting damaged when the trailer is moving up and down. There's force in those directions. And so we're going to take a look at that, and we're going to add some steel around the outer edge of the end of that receiver tube to strengthen that. And the most labor-intensive way I could think of to make this was to go back to some scrap tube, cut a couple of slices out of it, then cut those up into sections to expand them and be able to wrap them around the receiver tube. And I don't know what you do for fun, but what I do is wedge myself between the garage door and the back of a chassis and then attempt to weld something that's 10 inches off the ground and needs to be welded from underneath and the backside. Okay, after a couple hours of last minute work, I've got my thickener, or whatever you want to call this, welded up and looking satisfactory, in my opinion, on the receiver hitch here. I could totally live with the looks of that. But of course, minor detail, things that should have been tested earlier. Yeah, it doesn't fit. Two-inch drawbar, whatever you call that. 2-inch inside diameter on this tubing. Yeah, they're like exactly the same size. So even I ground this lip gently just to kind of bevel a little bit, make sure I wasn't catching there. And then there is like a little ridge in here from where the steel tube is joined together and welded when it's made. So I actually ground down that as well to make sure I wasn't hooking on that, and it just doesn't fit. I measured this versus another hitch that I have. This is 2.02 on my super accurate Harbor Freight. See that there? And the normal hitch I have on another vehicle is 2.08. So whatever that is, 6/100ths bigger. It's enough, especially if I end up getting powder coating or something in there. Not going to work. So I'm going to have to cut this off. Do what I should have done the first time, which is just buy like a pre-made receiver and just cut it to fit and weld it on here, which should already have like the thicker edge and everything built into it, and should already have the hole drilled in it in the right spot. Yeah, and also I only have like 2 days before I need to drop the chassis off for powder coat, so this will be interesting. As always, there's never time to do it right, but there's always time to do it twice. So that's it. We're going to call that ready for the powder coater, despite my breathtakingly poor quality preparation on the metal. We're going to get this loaded up into the trailer and then off to get in the queue. And we made it. We beat the deadline and saved the shop. Hopefully, sometime after the first of the year, I'll get it back looking even nicer than this. Thanks for watching. See you next time.